The guy that stopped the boats, Tony Abbott, in trying to get the Liberal Party back on track, he's called for Don Harwin's resignation over the New South Wales council election debacle. Just to jog your memory again, last week we covered the story of how there were some almost 150 candidates that were not actually submitted their forms as candidates in New South Wales, 53 of which were sitting councillors for the Liberal Party. Now, when you're a candidate for the Liberals, you're not allowed to actually submit that form yourself. It's got to be done by HQ. So in New South Wales, it's Sydney. There were a lot of candidates that could have perfectly done it themselves, gotten it done, had peace of mind, know it's done, but no. In New South Wales HQ, they were meant to do it and they didn't do it. Don Harwin and one other was responsible for that, and he has refused to resign. And in fact, Tony Abbott and many others have basically been calling for his head as a result. Sorry, that's 140 candidate forms and 48 sitting councillors. In terms of the size of the debacle, there are some that are saying that this is the biggest debacle with regards to administrative things happening in political parties. Jeff, have you seen anything like this?
Well, clearly he needs to be sacked. If he's not resigning, you sack him. Or if he's elected, he needs to be taken out. For that to happen, there's not too many more important jobs. You've got an election cycle that comes around, whether that's council, state, federal. Here it's New South Wales. There's a council elections coming up. Have we got all the boxes ticked? That one box. Have you got that one box ticked? No.
Could it be any clearer that the Liberal rank and file are not being represented by their executive? It can hardly be any clearer. You know, how much can they get kicked by their executive before they do more?
Well, as much as that person's not doing his job here in New South Wales, the Liberal Party opposition in Victoria are not doing or representing their people either. I think they're just happy to sit in opposition. They're not ticking any box down there. Just like this guy, the executive. You need to have a strong team. You need a strong executive, and you need strong people on the ground as the face. So you need the back room, and you need the front face.
And not just a strong face, but almost someone who actually represents the values of the rank and file of the party, as opposed to these captain's picks and not representing the values of the party.
Yeah, that's probably what I meant by having that strong.
That kind of strength. That's a good kind of strength. Yeah,
you're right. You're calling on them to resign, and again, to remind everyone, Jeff Shaw is a former member of the Victorian Lower House. And so you know internally how the Liberal Party is meant to work, and I have no doubt you'd be demanding this. This guy probably would have resigned back when you were serving, straight away if this happened in Victoria. It kind of reminds me of when the Secret Service head didn't want to resign immediately, and it's like you have one job: protect the president.
Yeah. Would Michael Kroger really have resigned in this situation? Would he have?
He wasn't.
As a personality, though, would Kroger have?
I think he would have been so embarrassed that it just wouldn't have happened. But I think he would have been so embarrassed, and he would have been pushed because no one would be.
He wouldn't blame someone else and be like, "Oh,
it could be. He could very well have been.
My fault. What could you do?"
Could very well have been.
Sorry.
But he could have been voted out the next election.
Former Victorian Liberal president.
I know Kroger. I was just going to say, the argument they were saying, one of the excuses was one of the other guys, not Don Harwin, the other guy. He was saying that the reason this happens because we thought the cutoff was 5 p.m. not 12 p.m. I'm like, you mean to tell me you would have submitted 150 forms in 5 hours?
Maybe the day before. Maybe the day before. Maybe the week before. What? Ridiculous.
It makes me homicidal. And that's the thing. There are a lot of people. One of the guys, he was in a very winnable seat. He was going to be and guys, these are mostly, these are conservative guys that were going to run, guys and gals. And the idea that they're not in, that earlier story about the treaties, do you think there's more or less opposition to that? And that's not including all the other stuff with regards to, how these councils approve certain developments in your area, the smart city stuff, everything.
Incompetence or malfeasance, what do you think?
Exactly. And also, I mentioned last week, often, the way George Soros has taken over America, he buying off and engaging a lot of these district attorneys. And the reason why there's so much crime on the streets is he gets involved in local and council elections and with these DA elections. Now, the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, they often bleed their candidates, train their candidates, experience them in local, then they move to state, then they move to federal. That's how Mark Latham got his start. He started
certainly the Labor and the Greens certainly have that as their fan base. as their starting ground. It's a cesspool of leftism, is councils. And not many people of conservative values used to go in because they were busy working. They were busy doing things, worrying about family, worrying about business. Whereas these others that had a more of a political persuasion, they took an interest in politics, so more leftist stuff, they came in and wanted those roles.
Yeah, so an entire generation's wiped out. The gateway to get elected at the next election lies in New South Wales, Queensland and WA at this stage. That's where the majority of the seats are Liberal needs to win. And all these guys that would be getting all this public funding from rates and, you know, they would be well-tuned. And, I mean, I wouldn't blame it if the majority of them are turned off now. I mean, this is a massive, massive debacle.
Even a little bit more than the funding is they get their face out there as well. So
What are you doing for me sort of thing?
Yeah. So they'd be in the local paper, so they'd be getting known more locally. They'd be out there. They'd have the Liberal member or the Conservative member beside them on a lot of things as well, leading up to elections.
And Don Harwin wasn't elected, how do I say this, in a way that was transparently clean. Is that?
I have no idea. But
I've been awash in leaks this week from different people, but the one person who has been willing to put his name to it, former state executive member for the Libs, Carl Kratasi, he's always said for a while, since he got expelled from the party, which was about 6 months ago, along with Cameron Zuli on that night, he said that it's irretrievable, cannot be reformed. And I thought it was a bit of hyperbole because, you know, when that kind of breakup happens, you're like, oh, you know, you're upset. But surely they'll come around. They'll lose. They'll reform themselves. They lose the state election. They'll come around. But I saw this and went, he's right. This is irredeemable. Maybe this rot really is that deep that you need to go all the way to President beyond Keane. It's that deep that maybe it does face a UK-level Conservatives wipeout before they turn the corner. Maybe he's right.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And to make matters worse, you know, we're seeing this massive civil war heat up. You know, we've got Tony Abbott basically blowing up the ship there by saying, look, this is not on. This is not how we run the ship. You know, I'm a